Hey guys, welcome back to Pirelli. Today we're gonna be doing the do's and don'ts on first date, and so this is all gonna be according to the book "How to Be a 3% Man" by Corey Wayne. So yeah.
Okay.
What's funny? You have a comment
No.
No?
No.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
I think that giggle was like almost like saying, "Oh, that's lame." That a guy would need a book to be a 3% man. But anyway, since she didn't want to further comment on that, we'll just go ahead and skip that. So the way it's gonna work is I'm just gonna read the list off, and then we're just gonna kind of give our input each on what we say, whether it's agree, disagree, or maybe even just general commentary. All right. So the first one is gonna be, don't spend the time talking about you. Do let her do most of the talking.
Well, let's see. For me, personally, I don't think I'm much of a talker, so I don't think that would work for me.
So meaning that at the point where he would come expect you to take over the conversation, it would kind of be at a standstill because you.
Probably be awkward silence a little bit.
Okay. So at least as far as part of that, you're not guilty of talking about yourself too much. Because I think it goes, I think it goes without saying. Oh, by the way, obviously, I'm sure you guys picked it up by now, but yeah, it is obviously written by a male author, intended for a male audience. But some of it can be general to both sexes, and I think in this case, nobody wants to hear anybody talk about themselves too much. So you wouldn't do that mistake, right?
No, I don't think I have.
All right. So then, shoot. Well, and then what about the second part where it says, "Oh, well, that's what you just yeah, because you happen to be the female in this case." But yeah, so well, I would say definitely, yeah, I agree. Obviously, like I stated before, don't spend, like the majority of the time talking about yourself, just because obviously this kind of gets annoying, and at the end of the day, you guys are kind of there to learn about each other. It's not like just one-sided, like not one person's trying to learn everything about the other. And then the only thing I'll also say about that is I happen to agree with this statement a lot, just because I've always felt that, and I could probably catch a lot of heat from the women out there about this, but I've always found this aspect of dating relates a lot to the justice system. And I know some of you guys, I might have just totally lost you right now, but having once been like, a defendant in the U.S. justice system, I can definitely say that the more you speak, the more like bad or wrong they have to find in your statements or in your points or whatnot. So the same thing with dating. The more you're here talking about yourself or just things in general, the more things I feel is bound to be basically more chance for there to be like a red flag about you, because you're just going on and on and on, so you're just creating much more opportunities for there to be either an argument about, or just something that it may not happen to suit her, that other person on the other end. And then I think you were gonna add something.
Well, I'm just gonna say, like, the conversations when you go on your dates should be 50-50.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So, like, if there's like awkward moments or awkward silences, either due to nervousness or you guys are just not that interested in each other.
Yeah, that's true. But it could just be that maybe there's a guy that reads this book and he might be totally into you, but he might be trying to abide by the rules here. And then it will be tragic if nothing develops simply because of that, because maybe he doesn't. So he's trying to abide by this, and then if it's a girl like you, it just happens to be a girl that's not accustomed to it, so she's not going to go out of her way to talk. and there could have been something there, you know, like, but you just you didn't make that, you didn't facilitate that in any way.
Okay, moving on.
What the hell? All right, so yeah, the next one is gonna be, don't badmouth your ex-girlfriends or wives. Don't badmouth her ex-boyfriends or husbands either. Do say positive things about you. I'm sorry. Do say positive things about your past relationship, or don't say anything at all.
Yes, I would say most women do not want to hear about your guys' drama in the past. If you're in a relationship with the person, obviously you want to know what happened and why did it fail, so you can learn from it. But when you're in the beginning, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I think just going with what we said earlier, I think it just goes back to, you're there to learn about each other, not about each other's past, I guess, in general. I mean, I guess that's cool. That's totally fine. It's not that learning about someone's past is wrong in general, but at least as far as like someone's past in relation to their, like, you know, love relationship, it should have basically little to no effect on what you guys are trying to build, or how you guys are trying to get to know each other. So yeah, I would say that's definitely something that I think I agree on. And then as far as the part of saying positive things, like not necessarily bad things, because she mentioned the word drama, so it does talk about positive things too. It just doesn't mean in negative ways to bring up the past relationships. But then that might still convey a wrong message. Like they may think like, well, okay, well, if you're speaking so highly of your past relationship, why are you here trying to get to know me, kind of thing. So I see it as it could possibly just bring about like a little bit of not negativity altogether, but just how can I say it, like,
Well, let's just say that if you talk about your past relationships, it tends to bring negativity into whatever it is you're trying to create during your date. Because
but
now
not necessarily,
like,
though, because if you're bringing up something good, that's not negativity.
Yeah.
And they'd be like,
well,
oh, she was a fantastic cook, and that's not negative in any way.
Yeah, because if you say that, then like, I guess like girls like me who overthink sometimes are like, okay, but I'm not that great of a cook.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I guess with this one, yeah, we definitely do overall agree.
It's a touchy one.
Yeah, you could argue kind of both ways. And then the next one says, don't overly compliment a woman, except maybe to tell her she looks nice when you pick her up or meet up, or that you guys had a good time at the end of a date. Most guys try to give ass kissy compliments to get women into bed, to the point it comes off as being phony or a clinical diagnosis. It comes off as a bribe for sex if you overdo it.
I agree. You guys don't need to like keep telling us that we're pretty. We know we are. For the most part. Obviously, Ross would not be on this date.
Yeah.
And honestly, most women out there already know that men are always trying to get into our pants.
Yeah. Well, I would probably kind of slow down with the overgeneralizations, but yeah, I would say that it's yeah, they could just, I guess, lose value through time. They could lose value as far as I mean, just because you overuse them, so they just lose value. Yeah, I think that, and well, a little bit about what she was mentioning. I think that, yeah, sometimes it just doesn't come off as fully genuine. It's like, oh, are you just saying this to advance your interests, or do you really mean that? And I think more importantly to this topic, I think that maybe you could try to focus on actions that would convey that, make her feel beautiful or valued, or like or anything like that, other than just merely saying it and it having no substance, especially because again, I think these were things, on a first date, so it's gonna make you seem too superficial. It could be as well, like that, like, you know, like maybe she's told you so much about her already by this point, and here you are just like making comments on superficial things when she's told you a lot more deeper things that maybe you should be either concerned about or just stuff like that. But again, don't get it wrong. I think it definitely does hold its place to definitely like give a good compliment. But again, the main thing of this rule was about overdoing it or overusing it.
Yeah, because us women do love compliments. I feel like if we don't get them, we're like, what did we get dressed up for?
Yeah, so you definitely don't want to like shy away from them altogether, but you just want to obviously do them in moderation. Yeah, so okay, cool. So yeah, so far I think we've overall agreed with all of these, right? So far?
Yeah, I think so.
And then the next one's gonna be don't take her to extravagant places on the first date. If a guy starts spoiling a woman right away, she will come to expect that kind of treatment. And then it says do take her someplace nice, quiet, intimate, and inexpensive until you get to know her and to know that she is really into you.
I agree, because you get those girls that are like, well, I'm just hungry, let him take me out.
Yeah.
We're on board, let me just let him take me out.
Because I had nothing better to do or something like that.
Yeah, so start off small to see where she stands with you.
Yeah, that way, I mean, I guess that's a way to like in advance cut your losses in case it goes bad. But no, I think it's more about like just kind of like gradually, kind of graduating, almost like graduating, doing it gradually so that you eventually graduate. Yeah, and obviously if you guys become a thing and maybe down like the road, maybe on the 10th date, like you can go to that really fancy dinner and all that stuff. But because again, at the end of it, it's more about you guys getting to know each other and that stuff, not like, you know, what you can provide her financially, you know, or anything like that. So yeah, I think I definitely agree with this one. Any other comments on this one?
I think with that kind of thing, less is more. So
oh, there you go. Yeah,
even if it's like something small, it could still be elegant and romantic.
yeah.
So that's where your creativity
And
comes
touching?
in.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. All right, cool. As far as like, cause sometimes I know I've known guys, or I've been on that boat where I'm struggling. It does. Speaking of, it says, do take her somewhere nice, quiet, intimate, and inexpensive. Not to go too much into detail of all those characteristics, but where would you say is maybe like really good solid spots for guys to take a chick out on the first date, like something that's preferably not overplayed, like the movies is kind of like old already. When we were discussing earlier, right, when we were small, the thing was to, well, at least for like high school age kids and stuff like that, it was like you always went to the mall, the parents dropped them off at the mall or at the movies. But what can be something?
I didn't date them.
Yeah.
But yeah, my friends did.
Yeah.
I would think maybe like, well, coffee is a big thing nowadays, right? Coffee, boba places. Those are nice places to like have a drink, chat.
Yeah.
Not necessarily bars, but maybe like breweries, because they don't get as loud as a bar.
Well, that's true. And then some of those have games.
Yeah.
So they'll have board games, so it'll have the it could be a good pastime as you're getting to know each other. They're a little less dark too. Bars tend to be a little more in the dark scene, and breweries aren't.
Walks on the beach never fail.
Yeah, walks on the beach. Yeah. Cause, well, I mean, I guess unless one of you guys doesn't know how to swim, and then a wave
go
pulls you
in the beach.
a wave pulls you away, and then you just.
Then you try to get her.
That'll definitely automatically be a bad date there. Alright, cool. So here's one that might be a little interesting. So it says, be careful talking about sex, even if she is the one to bring it up. Change the subject after a few playful sexual innuendos. Use it sparingly and then change the subject. Most guys just get themselves in trouble with this subject. Yes. Oh, damn. That was totally like just a coincidence there. Yes. And before, because I know you kind of come down on me sometimes when I say that thing about the more you say, the more they have bad to fault you in your statements. This is a perfect example of it. I was just saying that a few points ago that the more you talk, the more you're literally giving them an opportunity to find faults in. So that's what this says here. Most guys get themselves in trouble talking about this subject. Meaning, if you had done the opposite and just left it at that and not say anything, there really wasn't anything to point out there. But because they chose to go on and maybe they said something inappropriate, yeah. So that's a definite yes. Any other comment on that?
I would just say, if a woman is ready to send you pictures, she will. You don't need to ask for them.
Man. Yeah, that's a big thing there. That's a big thing there. Yup. Anything else?
No.
No? Okay. Alright. Let's see. The next one says, be a charming James Bond 90% of the time and 10% of the time a naughty little boy. Same thing with teasing. Treat her like a bratty little sister no more than 10% of the time, or you will come off as just putting her down constantly.
I would have to agree.
Yeah, you have to agree?
Yeah. Because women, we grew up as like, well, in general, like, our fairy tales. We love our fairy tales. We want the guy who's gonna sweep us off our feet. But at the same time, we also want a guy who's like gonna have our backs when it's time to have our backs, or like gonna get down if he needs to, if like we're in danger or whatever. He's gonna step up, not like run away.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, I guess there's a saying that says that it's all about like the balance. You want to like just kind of like have a little bit of everything. But in this case, it is. I noticed. I found it interesting that it says 90% of the time charming James Bond, and the other 10% is naughty little boy. Obviously, that's very not balanced. That's like very lopsided. But I do see why. Because women are very emotional and more tender. So you do got to bring that charmingness, like you know, involve that in the interactions. But I guess it's the part of the charming James Bond is like you also still gotta like not so much put it out there, but definitely like let it be known that you're definitely still man enough, not just because you're here like being like lovey-dovey or really so sweet that you forget that sometimes there might be a time where you need to be a little bit more masculine and might need to jump into a situation to protect either her or yourself, or even both of you, or even like maybe a place, maybe depending on how bad that could something can be going. And so I do see the value in this one. And then yeah, treat her like a bratty little sister no more than 10% of the time, because you still want to make it fun too. You want to like, you know, not make it so sweet but also not so masculine that there's just two polar extremes. There's like a little bit of like fun in between.
Like play fighting is always fun.
Play fighting, okay. Tickling, yeah.
Making fun of each other, but in a nice way.
Pillow fights. Pillow fights too. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's definitely a good one. Any other comment on that?
Commenting about their favorite football team.
What do you mean? What does that have to do with this?
That's part of the playfulness.
Oh, like bantering, like about sports teams and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yep. All right. Would you agree with that percentage? Charming James Bond 90% of the time and 10% time a naughty little boy? Or would you even have maybe raised it, I don't know, the 10 to 15, meaning the James Bond goes down about 85, or you think that's about right? Because I actually think, isn't it like a little too much of the charming James Bond? Or wouldn't it be maybe like 80-20? Like charming James Bond 20% naughty little boy? Or is that about right? 90-10. I mean, he's the expert, but I mean,
I feel like that's more generalized, and every woman is different. Don't treat every woman the same.
Right. That's another thing about all these rules. Yeah. Nothing. Yeah.
But for me, exactly. As I can think of, I want to be swept off my feet most of the time.
Well, but part of that swept off the charming was James Bond. Remember? So still.
James Bond is very charming. Like even like the way he moves, the way he like. I don't even like the movies really that much, but like the way he talks, it's very like smooth.
Yeah, but you also know that he's ready to spring into action.
He's an agent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Okay, so like we don't want you guys. We want to know that you guys are aggressive enough to like handle business, but at the same time we also love to be like
pampered at times.
Pampered, cuddled,
sweet talked. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Next one is, if she is pressing you about past relationships, I think it talked about that earlier. I wonder why he made a separate bullet point on it. But anyway, if she is pressing you about past relationships, do not give in to her pressing. Say, I don't kiss and tell with a James Bond playful smirk. So I think we kind of covered that, but anything
this
to say
guy's
about
obsessed
that?
with James Bond. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I did that with you.
No, I don't think so. Not really.
But I have done that to a guy once, and I was just like, and he told me everything. But then in my head, I was like thinking, like, if he was a gentleman, why would he be telling me this? So I think it's because we're trying to bait you to see if you're gonna actually say something. So like, if we were to break up, what would you say behind our backs?
So like test them too at the same time. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I think that's kind of like to some point, like that should be in the past. Like, well, it is the past and it should stay in the past. Like, that's just kind of how more or less I see that. And I mean, that doesn't mean you can't like talk a little bit about it, but I think he's referring to if it's just like a little too much. Maybe, a comment or two will be fine, but yeah, I think it's fine because it's all about like obviously like getting to know each other, not about each other's past. So I mean obviously a little bit about each other's past with other things in life that are important, but at least not as far as like intimate past. Like,
yeah, because I think like every situation's different. Like there's a lot of broken homes nowadays, I feel.
Yeah,
so like
more
you
than
have
before,
to
it seems.
like if you're in a relationship with a person that has a child, like you have to know what's going on between that person and that other person to cohabitate with this child.
Yeah. So there's also a lot of case by case basis with all these like rules and stuff. So yeah, that's an important thing to bring up. If that's the case, then it's obviously a little bit different. But yeah, okay. Sounds like we overall agree with this. That last one. And then it says, don't treat the service people badly. Many women have been involved in the service industry before in one capacity or another, and if they see you treating another individual in a demanding manner, they will often read that as a sign of the demanding individual you may become later in the relationship.
I have been in the food industry a very long time. I have met people that are just unbearable. It's like, really? But yeah, like, even I felt like even when I was younger, I was very nice to the people, like waiters or whatever. Like, I would even clean up my mess.
Yeah, I do that too sometimes.
So I think yeah, I agree with that one.
Yeah, just because I think it boils down to just like something bigger than just dating. I think that you have to try to respect everyone like the same, like regardless of their profession and stuff. I think everyone still demands a minimum level of dignity and respect. So I think that's what it is. But especially in this context, if you're doing it while dating, then it can, as a guy, if you're the guy doing it, I guess it could definitely just kind of like make you come off as a prick, basically, and and obviously like that would affect your chances at trying to further anything in that for that particular relationship. But yeah, I think it's overall just about having like common courtesy. It's just because at the same time that it doesn't do all that, it just says a lot about your mannerisms and stuff and your
character.
Yeah, your character. So I think that's a good one. I think this last one, that's definitely the last one. It's not too long of a list, but it's like earlier, it kind of seems like the same, but it's definitely on a different bullet point. So I'll read it anyway. It says, do tip your wait staff appropriately. It says, some guys will shortchange a wait person on tips. I have heard women who will get embarrassed and slip extra money onto the table. It shows that you are cheap and that you do not appreciate the things that others do for you.
I wouldn't really know much about that one because I have to be honest, I don't really know how to tip. I do, but it's like, sometimes I wonder if it's a lot or if it's a little, or, so I don't know.
Well, the new thing now is that they have the little like the suggested tips, the percentages. So that's supposed to guide you as to what at least they conceive as being the minimum that you should tip if you are going to tip, and I wouldn't say what's the maximum, but how generous you feel or that you should be, or that you could be, I should say, that you could be. But
if it's also based on service, right?
Yeah,
because you have to have good service to get
right. You can't just do it right just to try to leave a good impression with your date. I think with that, yeah, that might be the only one that I was thinking that too, just because it seems like he's more or less like saying like just as long as you're with a date, pretty much just make sure you tip well, which that may not be the case all the time. I mean, it might just be that you had like awful waiter that maybe kept forgetting to bring you like special requests, and even not so special, but just like maybe say you didn't have enough napkins and you have to remind them like 3 or 4 times. It's kind of like it could be a little frustrating, or if I don't know, maybe they didn't take your order right, that can definitely be frustrating and unpleasant. So I that might be the only one I really disagree with. I think though with this, unless he's under the presumption that you're gonna have good service, then I think definitely you should tip well. But I wouldn't just do it just to impress your date, because I don't know, in a way maybe he's contradicting himself, because he did say to not overdo it with spending to then make the girl think that you got it like that or something like that. But I think that I guess that one's just more of a case by case basis. Like it just depends on the service you get. But as far as like, I guess assuming that you do get good service.
And I think like some women do judge based on that because then they're like, oh well, he's not generous,
Or he's
then-
cheap, yeah. Well,
so like it is a double-edged sword, that one, I think, especially because like I feel like especially nowadays where everything is so expensive, and it's like, okay, but what if we're in between checks, or what if we need that money for something else, or like, so I don't know.
yeah, that one could be just a little bit more, like I guess, subjective to kind of like even what you might think is good service, because what she thinks is good service I may not think, and actually we do sometimes think that, or I'm like, well, this is the reason I don't like this waiter, or whatever it might be.
And
But-
it's because I was once in the food industry, so I know how hard it is.
Yeah. And like he last said, I don't think it also necessarily means that you don't know how to appreciate what people do for you, because it's like you can express that very verbally. You know, I can. What's the point if, like, say I leave $100 tip, but then I'm pretty rude to the wait staff? It doesn't mean just because I tipped them $100 that I appreciate what he did for me, and that that I should be perceived as a good bait. Or the other extreme, which would be that that I tip pretty, like, well, not pretty bad, but like say the minimum, and then but I'm very expressive to the person, right? Like, hey man, like I appreciate you. I wish I could have you every time I come back here. Oh, and by the way, I'm even gonna go out of my way to, like, which I've done kind of like with her, like, oh, to tell your manager that you did a good job. Like that, in my mind, can sometimes convey way better than a $20-$50 bill can. Like,
Or
so.
he makes sure that he actually hands it to the person that waited on us.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that they get it, and not someone that maybe if that person went on break or stuff like that. So yeah, pretty much I would say that's pretty much it. Anything that you didn't see on that list, as far, because remember it was do's and don'ts on the first date, that you would add of your own? Like,
I'd say in the beginning, don't be, I guess it's kind of generalizing, like too aggressive.
don't be too aggressive. Cool. And you mean that verbally or physically? Like maybe the guy like physically touching you, or do you mean like just pushing you, like asking you too many questions, or
like pushy, like, okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, okay. Like, give an example, maybe.
Like, okay.
Because they may not know.
Like, they'd be like, oh, when are we gonna hang out? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm, like, when we first started, I was working 2 jobs, going to school. And instead of, like, you being like, oh, hey, are we gonna hang out today? Are we gonna hang out tomorrow? Are we gonna hang out? And I'm like, dude, like, when I'm free, I
Yeah.
will let you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get you. Anything else?
Not that I can think of at this moment. Oh, be yourselves. We don't want to fall in love with this phony guy and then like years later find out that it's something else. Or months later that you're something else, and it's like, just be upfront with who you are.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Okay.
don't waste my time, don't waste your time.
Yeah. Okay. I think the only one where maybe it's more of a question is like, how do you feel about, because it is a do's and don'ts, and some of the people that might see the video might actually be their very first time on a date, like, or their upcoming date. So with phones being such a thing now, well, how do you feel about someone that would be on their phone? Like say on the date, whether, and like, should they, and if they should, like, how much is too much, or along those lines?
Phones are a big thing nowadays. Sometimes I want to say, when I'm on a date and I see him, like, every once in a while it's fine, check your message, like, but not like throughout the whole date. Like, if it's important, then yes, answer it, obviously. But
Yeah, because some of these people, like, I know you mentioned in our case or you bring up here and there our case, but it could be one that, especially if there's opposite extremes in both those people that are dating. Like maybe one of them is almost literally unemployed. Like maybe that's the girl, and maybe the guy is like not only employed, but he has maybe he has 2 jobs. Maybe he goes to school and he has a small business on the side. So then I could probably totally understand how he could feel like he needs the phone a little more than that person. So what will be like a good middle ground, regardless of like just or like a rule of thumb? Like
well, it's also like with us when we first started. Like I said, I had 2 jobs, and I was going to school, and I was a manager of one of these jobs. So it was like my phone was constantly, remember, going off.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, like I would look at it real quick, and then if it wasn't important, I'd ignore it. But I mean, like with cases like that, you just have to explain to the person that you're with and why you're getting all these messages. Because then you just think like, oh, maybe I'm just not interesting enough for that person to like want to interact with me, that they're on their phone.
Yeah. Yeah, it could convey the wrong message. Yeah, it could convey the wrong message. What about if, because I know earlier you talked about tests, what if the guy is purposely doing it to test the girl? Because maybe he could be trying to test the level of controlling that the girl can be. So what if it's actually a test? Like you may not even know it can be a test.
I'm gonna tell you guys right now, like I've told him before, I'm not a woman to be tested. I don't like it. I don't expect, like for me, like I feel like if I'm testing someone, it might be unconsciously, but it's like, if I want to know something, I'm gonna ask you. If you want to know something,
well, no, because
I expect
you can't say that, because then if the guy just asks her like, "Oh, are you controlling?" Like most girls are just gonna be like, "No." Like who the hell's gonna admit? So that doesn't make kind of sense if you just ask someone like, "Are you controlling?" That's not gonna work.
I feel like every woman can be controlling in some way.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it's an unspoken thing that once you say I'm controlling, it's like, okay, are you uncontrolling to the point where you're like, it's overboard? So if you say that it's just about asking, then they can't just ask, because then it's like asking someone, "Are you a criminal?" Like they're not gonna just answer that honestly. At least
no, but we were talking about the phone thing, right? Like, oh, you're on the phone.
No, I know, and that's why it still relates to it. I was saying that specific example of what if the guy's just testing? What if he's not really on the phone for the purpose of being on the phone? What if he's on the phone for testing the girl? And then you're saying that, oh,
and then
that...
I could just be like, oh, is there something wrong?
No, that he's on the phone a lot to test to see how controlling this girl...
I know, and then you just, like...
Oh, that the girl would ask...
girls, like, that are, like, sane.
Yeah.
would be like, oh, is there something wrong? Is there something you need to get to?
And then, yeah, and the guy can just be like, no. And then, but then he stays on his phone.
Then we just leave it like that. I don't know, like... But don't expect a call back anytime soon.
So then he would have got penalized. So that then she was controlling that
I
imaginary
think it would
person.
just give that person like the feeling that, oh, I wasn't that interesting enough for him to set his phone aside if it wasn't important.
Yeah. Well, what it is right now is that you have a guy and a girl talking about something that is like, I don't know, man, because that doesn't necessarily mean the guy could have a business, 2 jobs, and school.
But that's important. I mean,
and a child, so he could be texting his daughter, son.
Yeah, and like I said, that's important. So you, like, say if I were to be like, oh, is something wrong, and you'd be like, oh, well, my business.
But I told you what the answer would be. That person would say no, and they would just leave it at that. But then it sounds like that imaginary person, I'm not saying it's you, that imaginary person that you're playing would be getting butthurt that she feels that he's on the phone a little too much.
Okay, considering that I'm not like a lot of women, so I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Obviously, it's one of those things that's almost like as heated as politics can become. So we're probably gonna like try to wiggle our way out of this. The last thing is, what would be your, as you personally speaking, or I don't know, if you rather say, what do you think if you had to speak for all women and there had to be the top 3 turnoffs? I guess you could say either one. What would you say? So maybe, especially preferably things that aren't really addressed in those bullet points.
Let's see. Demanding. We do not like men that are demanding. Arrogance. Well, especially for me, I do not like guys that are arrogant. You said top 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Third one. Selfish.
Demanding, arrogant, and selfish. So don't be those either, guys. All right, demanding, arrogant, and selfish. Okay. The first 2 I kind of like see a little bit more easier. How would a girl come to regard a guy as selfish on the first date? Like, meaning, what are things? I'm not trying to be a smartass. I'm just actually trying to genuinely think. Like, is there things that would tip off like red flags of a guy that's selfish, like for girls, or maybe even you, or?
I feel like the selfishness is a little harder to pick off on the first date. I think you would have to take a little bit more like conversations and things like that. But I feel like when you can feel like everything is about the guy and
So
not
maybe,
really interested in what you have to say,
Like what?
how you feel. And
Like
things
that second bullet point where he said, "Don't make it all about yourself."
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and say my top 3. I would say turnoffs. Obviously, this is from a guy speaking as far as like turnoffs. What I would be turned off with prospective woman that I'm dating, but so it's not to be confused, obviously, with the actual example of this book. But I guess in some cases it could work both ways. But for me, I'm a little more like particular with mine, like more specific things. So mine would be bad hygiene would definitely be one of them. Bad hygiene would just like literally not only turn me off but away. I'll just be like, oh no. Yeah, but so it would be that. Another one would be snobby. I think you said that in a different way. You said arrogant.
Mm.
Yeah, she said arrogant. For me, snobby. Yeah, just because most people don't like people like that. Just because it's like, you know, like when they say we all bleed the same blood or stuff like that. At the end of the day, like we're all pretty much equal as far as being humans, and so like you shouldn't come into a date with that type of an attitude, especially not like on a date, you know, when you're trying to get to know someone. Just because yeah, I guess that can be an indication too of what you were saying, the selfishness. It could just come off as like all you care about is yourself, or for you to have a certain image. So I think snobby. And then the last one would have to be, last turn off would have to be controlling. Yeah, just controlling. Just because you know, like it can be sometimes, depending on how bad it could be like suffocating. But obviously with how it relates to dating, some of that you may not be able to catch right away. But like she said with the selfishness, there's probably little indicators, like not necessarily red flags, but little indicators that there might be a possibility if you really read between the lines. So that I would say that's another thing. When you guys are on these dates, don't get me wrong, don't overthink it, but also read in between the lines, because a lot of times there can be little things in between what someone says or how they act that can tell you more than what they're actually like putting out there, like whether that be like physical or verbal. So just kind of like also learn to read between the lines, young fellas, young lions, young fellas, young lions, you know.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty much, I think, it for me. Anything else that you wanted to add or?
I just want to say, you guys, just be yourselves. Have confidence. Women love confidence, but not too confident to where you're a freaking know-it-all. We don't like that.
Yeah.
Also respect the fact that we are women and we have minds, not just body. So pick our brains a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay, so you know how earlier I asked you for the guys that will be struggling? Because some guys, believe it or not, they make it a big thing as to like, oh my God, where do I take her? Is she gonna like this? Is she gonna like that? Or like, or should I go here? Should I go there? Like, oh, that's played out already. So what about just more like small advice for the young lions, like I said out there, that maybe either shy or inexperienced? I think the last thing we could end on is like, as far as what about the ones that especially if they tend to be on the more bashful side, like what about the ones that break their head? Because at one point in my very young life, I used to be to a point where I'm like, well, you know, like what do you talk about for the entirety, right, of a date? Like you might have one that, or a couple things off the bat, but then really quick, especially depending on how fast. Some girls talk so freaking fast, man. And so based off that rate of chat or talking, that it could go by like super quick. Everything you thought it would last. Like, so what would you advise them to, I mean, I wouldn't say specific topics, but how would you advise them to go about, like, to not be so much in their heads and keep them more like at peace at mind, like, oh, like you'll be fine if you just stick to this or that? Or
I don't think there's a structure for conversating. I feel like conversations play off of each other, so it would have to be in the moment.
True. Okay.
And
That's pretty simple yet effective.
And if you guys take a woman on a date, keep it simple. Because if she doesn't like the simple things, most likely she's more out there for the grander things. She's not gonna like the little things.
Yeah.
And you want someone that's gonna like the little things and appreciate the bigger things you do.
Alright, okay. Alright, cool. Sounds good. Alright. Well, alright guys, I think that's pretty much gonna wrap it up. Yeah, I just kinda wanted to you know, give some friendly advice to some of the young cats out there. Well, I'm sorry, lions, right? Yeah. So, young lions out there.
Lion is a cat.
No, I know, but I mean, usually, you know, so. All right, cool. If you guys feel like you have any other questions, any more specific questions, if you want to share your experiences, obviously, definitely feel free to go ahead and ask it or add it in the comment section. And hopefully you guys are having a good one out there. And yeah, so.
And if you feel like some guy needs this kind of advice, go ahead and share it.
All right, guys.